It's the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Oh my goodness. It has been a little while. We didn't have a stream on Friday because everybody was gone for the holiday. We didn't have anything on Saturday or Sunday because we were celebrating America. Of course, Monday was the full celebration of America. And so we were out on a live stream there as well. And we're back. That means it's been 4 full stinking days, but it looks like we're still alive and well. The cobwebs are off of the inner tubes. We're up on YouTube. Shout out to Vientikis, who's holding down the fort over there, along with C. Reed in the house. Ronnie Cole's a member over there. I see on locals, Tweak, JC the Music Man. We've got C. Reed's over there as well, along with others who are chatting away. And hello, my friends. Welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I'm a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. And today, we've got some headlines to attend to. My goodness, we're going to be talking about the January 6th Fake Select Committee. They were out over the holiday weekend, hitting the airwaves, as they like to do over the weekends, when the committee turns into sort of a, it kind of hits the brakes, you know, in between these little show trial ordeals, these episodes that they keep releasing. They take breaks, and of course, Kinzinger and Cheney and Schiff, they all hit the airwaves, and they did a lot of that this weekend. You can see, we're going to go over to our mind map. This is available at j6mindmap.com. And if you want to follow along at home, please feel free to throw that into a browser and you can bounce around with us. And so as I was explaining, this is what we saw over the weekend. Look at these 3 people. Kinzinger, Cheney, and Pencil Neck Watermelon Head Schiff were all out there. And I've got like 7 or 8 clips from them. And so we are going to go into several clips from them because they are fleshing out some of the end game on this. And remember, a lot of this, they're kind of in hot water on this thing because last week we were talking about this woman, Cassidy Hutchinson. She was there as part of their surprise hearing that took place on 6/28 back in June. And there was, you know, a lot of problems with this testimony. We have unpacked a lot of this. We've really talked a lot about it during our morning walk and talks. But if you recall, there was this note that she talked about. There was this note. She said, I wrote the note. I swear I wrote it. Are you sure? Yes. Is that your handwriting? Yes, it is. Turns out, no, probably not hers. As we learned from Eric Hirschman, the Trump White House lawyer, who says, actually, I wrote that note. So we're going to have to get to the bottom of that. But you'll also remember there was this big conversation about this video, or about this Donald Trump assaulting the Secret Service driver of his SUV. And so we have the video of that actually that was bouncing around on the internet. So we'll take a look at this. Here, there was this video that was bouncing around from Alla Pundit. And so we're going to wait for that to pull up. We will take a closer look at this video and zoom in on that. But that is, of course, on the show, on the docket for today. And then we're going to save for last, sort of our last segment, a big update on Steve Bannon. Because remember, Steve Bannon, oh my goodness, his trial is coming up just in about 14 days from now. Trial date 7/18. And we'll see. We'll see if this trial goes. It is a hard scheduled date at this moment in time. But we're going to look at what took place over the weekend, over the last basically 4 or 5 days in the Bannon trial, because we're getting close to trial readiness, right? We've got 2 weeks out. Jury instructions are now up, and so we're going to go through those briefly. We also have Steve Bannon. They filed a formal motion to continue the trial, meaning they want a continuance on this case. They don't want the trial to take place on the 18th. They want to push this out, you know, however many months, because we're right in the middle of the January 6th Select Committee. We're right in the middle of this charlatan hoax going on. And they're saying, how can we have a fair trial right in the middle of this scam that's ongoing? And so they filed a motion to continue. Government prosecutors, they responded. They say, we do not want a continuance. We're ready for trial. We don't want to go through it. We don't want to continue it on later down the line. We're going to handle it here. And so we'll go through that. And then lastly, we have the motion in limine. Okay, so we've got a little heavy lifting on the legal front to do here at the end of the program. But a motion in limine is a preliminary motion. And these are where we flesh out all of the issues before the trial starting. And so in this case, they're talking a lot about whether they can talk about the actual riots that took place on the Capitol, or whether certain parts of the reporting can be included or not included. And the analogy that we use on a lot of this is the hula hoop, right? How far out does the hula hoop extend over some of these issues? And different sides want different boundaries of the hula hoop, right? You can argue this stuff inside the hula hoop you can talk about. Stuff outside the hula hoop you can't talk about. And so they're always sort of fleshing out what that actual boundary is. And we are going to get into that and more. So we've got Bannon, we've got the Schiff and crew, Cheney and crew, and of course we've got Cassidy, Hutchinson, and we're going to get into all of that and more. If you want to be a part of the show, a couple places to do that, and I'd love it if you joined us, but over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, they're chatting away, and we have these morning walk and talk videos that we do that are a lot of fun. And I posted one of these on the main channel on YouTube yesterday for the July 4th, but we do that every morning. And so if you want to join in on those walk and talks, sign up in one of these places, either at locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or on YouTube by just clicking that join button right next to that subscribe bell. I see Ronnie Cole's a member. He's in the house, and so he gets access to some of that stuff. And of course, I want to remind you that our time here together is supported by you thinking about our law firm. We have a lot of fun here on the channel, but by you thinking about, oh, Arizona, somebody I know got charged with a crime in Arizona. Somebody I know got a traffic ticket. Somebody I know got a DUI or is involved in a domestic situation or something like that. Boom. I know that lawyer, Rob Govea at the R&R Law Group. They help with these things. And so I'd love it if you sent them our direction, 480-787-0394. We offer free case evaluations. And we love, love, love the work that we do. And so thank you for supporting our efforts and our team there doing amazing work here in Scottsdale and Phoenix, Arizona. And so without any further ado, my friends, let's jump into it. The J6 Mind Map available at j6mindmap.com. We do have to get our bearing straight on the day's topics because it's been a little while. We haven't been talking together for some time here. And so recall that the last time we really got together was on 6/28. We were talking about Cassidy Hutchinson. Cassidy Hutchinson was somebody who was an assistant to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for Donald Trump. And she was in there testifying. They pulled this surprise hearing out. They said, oh my gosh, we have to drop everything. And it is something that was kind of a shocker to many people in the media. And if you remember, when she was testifying, there was red headlines all over the place on CNN and on Washington Post. Oh my gosh, Cassidy Hutchinson, who was in the room. She signed the note. She was somebody who heard from Tony Ornato about what took place in the presidential vehicle and blah, 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 blah. Well, it turns out a lot of that is actually not really true. And we had a lot of questions about this testimony, so we're not going to replay that. But we covered a little bit about the note and these other things. But as I recall, as I mentioned, there was a lot of debate about this all across the interwebs near the end of the week last week. And so this guy, Jack Bryan, you can see here on Twitter, he posted this. He said, oh, I got it. I got the smoking gun. Here's the image. Okay, so there's actually video of this. And he says that Trump is reaching for the steering wheel in 4 different frames. All right, so you see sort of this whited out area here over these photo frames. So photo number 1 looks like, to me, it looks like a blurry blurb. Photo number 2, blurry blurb. Photo number 3, blurry blurb. Photo number 4, blurry blurb. But Jack Bryan says, okay, yep, here it is. I mean, here's the original video. I mean, I have it right here. Here it is. And so this came over from Mike Sington on Twitter. He says, January 6th, seated directly behind the front seat in the presidential SUV, watch a very animated Trump lurch forward towards the driver several times as they prepared to leave the rally. And so you can watch this video, and I guess we'll see what happens here. Is Trump assaulting the Secret Service agent? Let's see here. Play. It's not playing in there, so we're going to have to open it up over here. All right, so Twitter is giving us some grief here. Here it is. Now let's turn this volume up. Okay, so apparently, let's turn that volume down because it's probably going to get a YouTube strike on that. Not good. All right, so here, let's see what's going on. Okay, fast forward some of this. Looks like Donald Trump's over here entering on the left side of the screen. Photographer is walking by over there. Is that Trump? That's not Trump, is it? Okay, so now everybody comes walking around. And let's see where that... Okay, so now the door opens, and do we see Trump, who must be on inside already, right? So we're going to see if we can see him assault this secret agent, this Secret Service agent. Oh, man, we missed it. So it's just right there, that one like frame right there. Boom. Boom, we sort of saw that hand. Okay, so that's what we saw. That's the entire thing. And there, door open. and he's pointing. And if you're listening on the audio only, we really don't see anything of Trump. It's another person getting in there. Okay. So the point is the person extrapolated those 4 frames from that clip. So we go back up here. That's what they saw. So that's Donald Trump assaulting, reaching for the steering wheel in 4 frames, according to Jack Bryan. All right. Now, obviously, basically lunacy and insane. Now, here is another tweet from Adam Kinzinger, and we're going to jump into Adam Kinzinger here next. But this is the story that was percolating after this. Now, remember, Cassidy Hutchinson came out and she said, I know that Donald Trump assaulted the Secret Service because this guy, Tony Ornato, who was a part of the Secret Service, was the person who told me this story that took place, right? And Kinzinger said that there seems to be a major threat here. He posted this back on June 30th saying, Tony Ornato likes to lie. And you say, well, wait a minute, dumb Adam. That means that you put in your teleprompter speech that you read through, or that actually Liz Cheney read through during your surprise hearing with Cassidy. What's her name? Cassidy Hutchinson. I was saying Cassidy Hutchinson, but that's not right. So here, Cassidy, she was written into the teleprompter speech during the high school pep rally. And they asked her specifically, can you please tell us this story? And she told him the story because she's been interviewed multiple times. And she said, yeah, Tony Ornato told me X. Okay, so the committee, if they were legitimate and they're doing their actual job, then they would vet that information. They would say, okay, Tony Ornato told you that? Okay, well, Tony Ornato is not a liar. He's a reasonable person. And so we're going to say that you should listen to him and reiterate that story to America, right? Because we're reasonable people and we want to present the truth. Well, it's weird because Adam Kinzinger, who still has his Ukrainian flag in front of the American flag, by the way, says there seems to be a major thread here. Tony Ornato likes to lie. And so, of course, the obvious question is, well, why did you idiots put his story in front of America? And Alyssa Farah Griffin, right, another blue check mark on Twitter, says, Tony Ornato lied to me too. So everybody goes, he's a liar. He's a liar. Well, why'd you use his story then? Saying he lied to me during the protests at Lafayette Square in 2020. I told Mark Meadows and Ornato that they needed to warn the press staged there before clearing the square. Meadows replied, we aren't doing that. Tony later lied and said the exchange never happened. He knows it did. Okay, so a lot of people are now saying Tony Ornato's a liar. And Alla Pundit over on Hot Air is saying, well, that's weird. Yeah, I don't know why they would present this if he is, in fact, such a liar. And it's a good question. And we've been talking a lot about this, you know, and I think that it really sort of is the first domino. It kind of pops the balloon, so to speak. If she's a liar about the note and she's a liar about the Trump arm reaching story, well, then how can we trust anything else that came out of her mouth? And a big part of her testimony has been used, or is now being claimed to have been used, or going to be used to actually lead to the indictment of Donald Trump. But if she's already basically 0 for 2 in some of these stories, okay, she's already, the balloon has popped, then how can anything she says be credible enough to justify an indictment? I don't think that it can. And if the committee is so incompetent that they're going to put a bona fide liar up there, or somebody who is so grossly incapable of remembering the truth, including what her handwriting looks like, apparently from this note, then the whole committee, in my opinion, right, is basically tainted. Because that means that their standard of investigating their evidence and investigating their witnesses in this one case, right? There's a saying called how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're going to skimp around the edges with this one witness in a surprise hearing, then how can we trust you to be credible and reliable with all of your other witnesses, especially in light of all of the other problems that we have highlighted throughout this entire charade, right? We've talked about all of the, here, I'll show you. We haven't gone through these in some time, but I mean, we have all sorts of counters to every single thing that they have talked about. All the double standards, hyperbole. You see all these here. We've got every single one of these is a big, fat, stinking counterfactual. Actual conspiracies. We've got legal arguments. We've got different policy arguments. And, you know, the double standards just go on and on and on, not to mention saying that government themselves may have been complicit in denying a lot of the additional security requests that would have prevented the Capitol Hill riots from taking place in the get-go. So again, right, the whole thing is just on and around we go. They present bad evidence and they want us to believe it is fact. We say it's not fact, it's bad evidence. And they say, how dare you criticize what we're doing? You must hate America. You must hate democracy. And we saw a lot of that over the weekend. While many of us were celebrating America, not because of the federal government, because of the people of America, because of the principles of America, because of the inalienable rights that we cherish and deem to be so important to our livelihood. Well, they were out talking about a different vision for America. And so we're going to go through several of these here today before we dive into some of the Bannon stuff. Here first, we've got several clips from Kinzinger, and let's just pull some of these up. Now, you know, there's 4 of them from him. So I'm trying to debate what order we want to go in. Let's start here. He was over on Stephen Colbert, and Stephen, you know, is a real nice guy, and he just, you know, is just a comedian. You know, he just wants to talk about comedy with America. And somehow he has morphed into this political hack. I don't know how that happened, but maybe he's always been that. I don't know. But anyways, here's Kinzinger on his show. And here's what Kinzinger had to say.
And look, all we want to do is just get to the bottom of this. The American people deserve answers and a democracy to survive and to function. There are people right now dying in Ukraine.
We know that because his flag is Ukraine first.
To defend democracy. And it's like we can't be in any more of a hurry to get rid of ours here. All you need is people to recognize that your vote counts and who you vote for wins. That's how it, or wins or loses. That's how a democracy survives. And right now, half of the country has been convinced that's not the case.
Oh my gosh. So I could do a whole show on this segment because he's the dumbest person I think in Congress right now. So first of all, let's go through it again.
Deserve answers.
Okay, so the deserving answers part of this, oh my goodness. Yes, I agree with him on this. I would love some answers. I'd love to know what Stephen's son, why he was denied support from both House Sergeant at Arms and the Senate Sergeant at Arms. I'd love to know why Muriel Bowser denied National Guard support on January 5th. I'd love to know who planted the pipe bombs. I'd love to know how many. Okay, you get the gist of this, right? There's about a million things I'd love to know. So when he sits there and says, we'd love to get to the bottom of it, I'm with him. I'd love to get to the bottom of it too. I'd like to see an actual bipartisan committee, something that has an adversarial framework here, meaning we get Republicans who get to ask questions, rather than just having a big high school rally day after day after day, where they're all literally reading their book reports. Folks, you would get a C if you read verbatim from your book report, wouldn't you? In middle school, Mrs. Thompson, okay, she would have given you a C. She would have said, little Robbie, you just read the whole thing. You need to have eye contact. You know, you need to be able to think on your feet. You need to have a conversation with the people. But they're just reading from the script. And so they would all get C minuses easy. So he goes on. Let's go on.
And a democracy to survive.
So there's a million people in the audience screaming here right now, screaming, we're a democratic republic, moron. Okay, it's not a pure democracy.
To function. There are people right now dying in Ukraine to defend democracy. And it's like we can't be in any more of a hurry to get rid of ours here.
We can't be any more in a hurry to get rid of ours here. The most undemocratic thing currently happening in this country, in my humble opinion, is this committee. It has no due process. It's illegally constituted. 13 members supposed to be on it. They're not. You're supposed to have 5 Republicans. There's not. There's 2 of whom are going to be gone, right? 0 Republicans are going to be on this committee in 1 year. Less than that, in about 6 months. 0 Republicans will be on this committee in 6 months, just by virtue of the fact of elections. So Kinzinger is railing against this undermining democracy, but my goodness, right? This committee is way worse than anything Donald Trump did. What they are doing by putting on this show trial day after day after day with no end in sight, with no disclosure of witnesses, with no opportunity for an oppositional argument, no adversarial line of questioning at all. The whole thing is just a total scam. So, but you know, these people will get out there and they will lie through their teeth at you, Stephen Colbert, and everybody who watches that show, and everybody who just sort of claps like seals when he's done screaming those words like democracy. Well, we got to save democracy, and they're fighting in Ukraine for democracy. And you go, okay, Adam, you know, it just makes my blood boil. All right, so we better just keep going, because holy moly, I can't. This is going to be a long show if I'm going to explode at every one of these stupid clips. All right, so let me calm down. Sir, calm down. All right, I'm trying. Here's another one now. So this one, we're going to save that one for the end. There's a long one here of Kinzinger. And here he was. Oh, I forgot about this one. He posted this one over the weekend as well. Okay, so here's Kinzinger now. And he posted this. He said, actually, this was on Twitter. And he links this. Now, I'm not going to be able to play this. It's a 3-minute and 15-second thing. He said that... he posted this on Twitter. He said, my office is getting all sorts of violent abuse. We're getting voicemails from people that are threatening my office interns. And so he posted this 3-minute video. I'll read through it because there's a lot of no-no words in here that we're going to have to censor out. But he said here, disclaimer, you are about to hear real voicemails and phone calls directed to the office of Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Illinois District 16, which is going to be gone, right? He's not going to be there anymore. So he better enjoy that title for as long as he has it left. This video includes foul language and threats of violence. Okay, so we're not going to be able to play it. Viewer discretion is advised. So we are going to keep it muted, and the actual subtitles are going to have bleeped out language, but I'll read it for you here. We'll make sure we can improvise. The next thing says, okay, keep in mind all voicemails and phone calls are received by my interns, high school or college level, attempting to learn about the legislative process. Oh, that's nice. So they're going to learn about it. So he has them answering the phones. Why don't you go talk to the constituents? Okay. I don't want to deal with those people. You just take to and say, oh, yes, Mrs. Johnson. Yes, I know the potholes in Illinois are problematic. Yeah, I'll tell Adam. He cares about you a lot. Yes, I know. And so other people call him apparently and leave some voicemails. And so he says, let's see what these are. Okay. So it's playing now. And the first one comes up and it says here, I guess I can't say a whole lot more than I hope you as quickly as effing possible that you expire. You effing piece of S, you backstabbing. You go against Trump, y'all. Y'all are lying up there like a damn dog. Okay, is what's going on. And so this goes on for 3 minutes. Now, he says, I know where you live. We're coming to your house, right? You two blank, and little blank coming to your house. You blank and blankety blank, 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 right? All for about 3 minutes. And so he posted that on Twitter this afternoon. And everybody in the media was just going hog wild over this. Everybody saying, oh my gosh, look at those Trumpers. They're out there. They are going to insurrect America. And this is just the most heinous thing that's ever happened. And so he's posting all of that and everybody's going wild. And he was here on ABC as well. And somebody asked him about, of course, there was a tragic shooting, several of them over the weekend that took place. And Adam got asked this very hard question about this. Remember that the world is very, very, fortified now against AR-15s, a weapon of war, as they like to call them. And we saw a lot of headlines about that regarding the shooting over the weekend, saying that the damage resembled a war zone and the entire, the entire country needs to have a reckoning and so on and so forth. The same litany that we hear every time one of these things happens. They did it again over the weekend. And so now Adam Kinzinger, right, who's a veteran, I think, right? He's a veteran. He's somebody who everybody tells me all the time I criticize him. He served his country or something. I say, okay. So he now, he gets asked his very serious, somber question. As we know, AR-15s are the most offensive thing that has ever been invented. And now this question comes to poor Adam. Let's listen.
You were once an A rating from the NRA. You owned an AR-15. Do you still own an AR-15?
Yeah, Adam.
I do. Yep.
Oh my gosh. He owns an AR-15? Oh my gosh. That's like, did you see his response on this too? He's sort of like, yeah, I do. I'm very disappointed in myself, but yes, I own one.
I do. Yep.
So he just got busted. ABC.
Do you still own an AR-15?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. So right there, that's the face of an insurrectionist terrorist right there. Does he know what democracy requires of him? I mean, he was just out there telling us about American democracy. Well, AR-15s are ruining American democracy. So he better give that up. I mean, right away, he better turn that in. In fact, maybe he's doing that right now. I don't know. But that was Adam. Adam, I own an AR-15 Kinzinger. Womp, 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 womp. All right, so that's him. Now, we've got several of these from Cheney. We're going to spend a little bit more time on Cheney because Cheney was very active over the weekend. We've got 4 clips from her. And so let's go through some of this. Now, the first one that we'll attend to is when she was over there at the Reagan Library. Okay, over the weekend, we sort of touched on this incidentally, but I didn't see any video clips of her. And remember, this was when she went over to the Reagan Library. And apparently, she got like standing ovations. I mean, her entire speech was all about Donald Trump being a menace to the GOP, America being on the verge of destruction, and our lives almost basically being over unless Donald Trump is stopped. If Donald Trump is stopped, well, my friends, it's like Christmas every day in America again. or whatever holiday you celebrate. Hanukkah and Kwanzaa every day, as long as Donald Trump is not in power. And if they can stop him, well, all of these problems are going to fix themselves, because we know the last time they stopped Donald Trump, things got better in America, didn't they? When they threw him out and they inserted Joe Biden, everything got better. So we definitely want to make sure we get more of that. Here's Liz Cheney talking to a bunch of other so-called Republicans, I guess, at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
As the full picture is coming into view.
Oh my gosh, they added music to this. I had no idea they even added music to this. This is going to be so perfect. It's like somebody's directorial debut. Let's listen.
With the January 6th committee, it has become clear that the efforts Donald Trump oversaw and engaged in were even more chilling and more threatening than we could have imagined. As we have shown, Donald Trump attempted to overturn the presidential election. He attempted to stay in office and to prevent the peaceful transfer of presidential power. He said,
oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't know how much we can take of this. Now look at this crap. This is from the Lincoln Project, and she's got guys, you at least got to clip the teleprompters out of the stupid social media thing. I mean, crop this out a little bit, crop this out, 16:9, zoom in, crop out the teleprompters. I mean, it's pretty bad. This is pretty bad. They've got actual audio here.
Summoned a mob to Washington. He knew they were armed on January 6th. He knew they were angry. And he directed the violent mob to march on the Capitol in order to delay or prevent completely the counting of electoral votes.
Okay, so in all seriousness, right, that's basically the charging statement. Okay, so I want to play that again. That is the charging statement, right? We read through a lot of indictments here. We read through what they're saying Bannon did. Bannon was ordered to show up. He got a lawful subpoena from what they say is a legally constituted committee, didn't show up. And so in the charging document, right, in the indictment, they say, well, Bannon was supposed to show up, didn't show up. That's the charging language. Listen to this again. This will be sort of the factual narrative that you would see in a charging document. So let's back this up just a little bit. This is how they're going to indict the president.
And he directed the violent mob to march on the Capitol in order to delay or prevent completely the counting of electoral votes.
So that's a sedition.
He attempted to go there with them.
Yeah, and that's the act. Okay, that was the order. Donald Trump ordered them to go. And
when the violence was underway, he refused to take action to tell the rioters to leave. Instead, he incited further violence by tweeting that the Vice President, Mike Pence, was a coward. He said, quote, Mike deserves it. And he didn't want to do anything in response to the Hang Mike Pence chants.
I was looking for tissues around. This music was making me a little emotional, and I was going to start to tear up because her reading from the teleprompter in a very bland, I'm Liz Cheney, and it's undeniable that President Trump attacked America. Just reading, listening to this music. Now, let's see if we can fast forward to this. Here it is. But the reality that we face as Republicans.
But the reality that we face today as Republicans, as we think about the choice in front of us, we have to choose, because Republicans cannot both be loyal to Donald Trump and loyal to the Constitution.
Do you see that garbage? I get so irritated with these people. If you're a Republican, you cannot be loyal to Trump and the Constitution. She just said that. Now, I've said this many times before, what they're trying to do, right? This whole thing, it started out maybe as a Donald Trump focused ordeal. It is all Republicans. Liz Cheney just set the gatekeeping rules. If you support Donald Trump, you do not support the Constitution. And she's got a whole committee to go and you know what that means? That means that you're an insurrectionist. That means that you're a traitor. That means that you're treasonous if you support Donald Trump. That's what she's saying. Oh my gosh. I'm reading this book right now called The Gray Lady Winked, listening to it rather. And they're talking about the New York Times and all of this, all of the narratives that they created during World War II and how they sort of whitewashed what was going on in Hitler's Germany and how they would do things like this and just paper all over it. where they would go out there and they'd say, well, you know, all of one political class is now the enemy. And the New York Times would come back to America and write all about it and say, well, you know, Hitler, he means good and he's trying to strengthen the Deutschland. Okay. This is one politician in America who's currently basically they're in power, right? Her committee she's a part of a committee that is in power. And they are attacking an entire political party in America. I mean, it's one of the most insane things that I've seen. If you support Donald Trump, you're a seditionist. You're an insurrectionist. You're somebody who hates the Constitution. You're a treasonous person. Let's wrap it up.
Constitution.
Look at these morons clapping like seals. Who are these people? Let's see if we can identify any of these people. Reagan Library people. Who's in there? Yeah, I can't see anybody of them. Now they're all clapping for her.
We must ensure that we live in a nation that is governed by law and not by men.
Hey, this is a great point. Vienticus, with a very astute observation in the locals chat, says you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Oh, V, that is such a beautiful point. Just like her dad, just like Daddy Cheney. If you don't support America, you support the terrorists. If you don't support the J6 committee, you support the terrorists. It's the same thing. Liz Cheney is just like Dad Cheney. Vienticus, astute observer over there. All right, so you get the gist of this. This was Liz Cheney, put out by the Lincoln Project, and so some moron over there put the music behind everything. And, you know, very emotional. Okay, so you got to see what happened there. Now, let's chime in and see what else. So that was over the weekend. And Cheney is, in my opinion, very, very clearly going to be running against Donald Trump. I think she's already laying the framework for that. She gave the speech over at the Lincoln Project. And then she went over to this guy who asked Adam Kinzinger the AR-15 question. And Adam said, yes, it's true. I do have erectile dysfunction. Yes, I know. It is true. Yes. And he had that sort of admission, didn't he? It was a weird thing. Oh, yeah, I got an AR-15. Yeah. So, all right. So then Liz goes over to this guy because this guy's making the rounds with all the J6 committee. And here is what this conversation sounded like.
You've been cleared since really January 6th itself that he bears responsibility. Have these hearings demonstrated that Donald Trump needs to be prosecuted?
Ultimately, the Justice Department will decide that. I think.
All right, let's pause on that. Okay, the Justice Department's going to decide that. Talking about the indictment, this is a question that these idiots they keep pushing it down the road, right? Nobody wants to answer this, and this is because if they acknowledge that all of this is about an indictment, then everybody's going to go, oh, it's a political, it's a political committee. Because they're not supposed to indict anybody, right? This is not they don't have the power to indict. The DOJ has the power to indict. And the DOJ should have indicted if there was enough there, but they haven't done that, right? They have all of the power to do that, but they haven't done it. So she's going to say, and they're going to wait until the very end, the end of the finish line to see if they can sort of run the clock out, because the sooner they have to answer this question, the sooner the whole gig is up. Right? If there is an indictment that gets referred over from the DOJ, well, then they're pretty much done, right? The prosecution is going forward. They should have enough evidence to make the criminal prosecution successful. But that hasn't happened.
We may well, as a committee, have a view on that. If you just think about it from the perspective of what kind of man knows that a mob is armed and sends the mob to attack the Capitol.
Where are all the guns at? Liz, you're playing the ABC 15 thing, knows that the mob is armed, right? Where are all the guns? There was like one person, I think, that we covered here charged. I mean, you can go to the actual charging website that the DOJ has assembled and look for firearms charges. There aren't almost any of them. All right.
And further incites that mob when his own vice president is under threat, when the Congress is under threat. It's very chilling, and I think certainly we will, continue to present to the American people what we found.
So the committee will or will not make a criminal referral?
We'll make a
will or will not make a criminal referral. What are you going to do, Liz?
Criminal referral.
We'll make a decision as a committee about it.
So it's possible there will be a...
When? Can you ask when?
Criminal referral, which would be effectively the committee saying that he should be prosecuted, and this is the evidence that we've uncovered.
The Justice Department doesn't have to wait for the committee to make a criminal.
That's the same statement that Raskin was making, right? The DOJ, there's a little bit of a problem here. Look, the DOJ knows that this is a big stinking problem. They know that if they take this prosecution and run with it, that there's going to be a changing of the guard. There's going to be a political shift in power. Their prosecution is not going to be wrapped up by the end of the year. Okay, so now the Republicans are in charge. This committee is now sort of evaporated. It's replaced with a bunch of Republicans. So now you've got at least for the next 2 years, right, before the Republicans take over in Congress. Then the prosecution moves forward. So now Merrick Garland is indicting and prosecuting Donald Trump. If Donald Trump announces before the committee indicts him, then the committee and the indictment looks like a political hit. And then Donald Trump gets to say, well, I'm going to raise a bunch of money on this. You're prosecuting your political opponent, which is 100% true. So Merrick Garland is going to be caught in this big can of worms, right? What is he going to do? He's going to lead this prosecution. He was a Supreme Court contender. He was somebody who wanted to be on there and leave a legacy. Is his legacy going to be indicting maybe a sitting president? We'll have to see. But she wants them to do it because she doesn't want the responsibility, and they don't want to do it because they don't want the responsibility at the DOJ. So they're going to say, make the committee do it.
Criminal referral. And there could be more than one criminal referral.
Are you worried about what that means for the country to see a former president prosecuted, a former president who is a likely candidate, who may in fact be running for president against Biden? It would be Biden's Justice Department. It would be prosecuting.
Yeah, it's a big stinking problem. It's a huge catastrophic problem. And the thing that he's asking about is I think it's an order of magnitude bigger than anything the committee is trying to solve. Remember, folks, in our system here in the United States, we have what's called separation of powers. We have what are called checks and balances. One of the checks and balances on despots or tyrannical dictators is the vote. It's the people. Okay. You don't have to criminally indict every bad person. You can just take a politician and you can say this person is utter garbage and we're never going to pay attention to them ever again. And that's happened many times. Okay. Take a look at that guy who was, showing his wee-wee to all the Hillary staffers, whatever his name was. I think it's Weiner, right? What isn't his name Weiner? Weiner guy, right? He, right, was somebody who was high profile on the topic of everybody's minds, was sort of married to Hillary Clinton's campaign aide. And then he had a problem, obviously, and he is no longer around anymore, right? He got indicted and went to prison, but he came out and then he's gone. Nobody's going to vote him into office ever again, because the political system is a way to keep people out of power. Although that guy got indicted, so that's not really that great of an example. But you get the point, right? Anytime somebody does something very bad, they're out. And that is enough. So if the American people are really grossed out by what happened on January 6th, and it really is the biggest issue in these people's lives, well, then they can just vote. They just have to not vote for Donald Trump, right? He runs again and everybody just says no. Sorry, we're done. But if you do prosecute them, now you have weren't they all screaming about constitutional crises? Donald Trump was going to cause a constitutional crisis. How about you have Joe Biden's Department of Justice prosecuting their political opponent in Donald Trump? You don't think that's a constitutional crisis? You don't think that what happens at the end of that election is going to be even more illegitimate than what happened in this last election, according to people and their opinions on this thing? Right? It's going to be a disaster. So Liz, do you have any idea what kind of problems you're playing with here? Right? The J6 incident on the Capitol Hill, that was over in 6 hours. This has been going on for 18 months now.
Greater concern about what it would mean if people weren't held accountable for what's happened here. I think it's a much graver constitutional threat if a president can engage in these kinds of activities and, the majority of the president's party looks away, or we as a country decide, we're not actually going to take our constitutional obligation seriously. I think that's a much more serious threat.
Much more serious threat. So that's Liz Cheney. Now, I couldn't disagree with her more, right? I think that what this committee is doing is far more harmful to America than anything that Donald Trump ever did. And we're going to have to see what happens with the committee and what the voters of Wyoming do about this, because Liz Cheney has made this her entire sales pitch. And of course, she is running for re-election in Wyoming, and they had a debate. You can see I pulled it up on the screen over on CBS. And Liz Cheney is up running against Harriet Hageman, who's going to win. It sounds like she's way ahead in the polls. And we talked previously, Adam Kinzinger was somebody who's crying about this ordeal. I think we talked about this on one of our morning walk-in talks, which you can join in on if you're a member or supporter. But Cheney is now trying to regain a little bit of momentum. And I don't really think she's all that interested. I mean, she'd love to win this again, because that means that she could continue to be a thorn in Trump's side indefinitely. But that's unlikely to be the case, right? I think she actually loses this, and she is now thrown out of the party. But she may, right, intend to run again and primary Donald Trump. She'll still say, I'm a Republican, I'm a declared Republican, I'm a maverick or whatever. And then she's going to run against Donald Trump so she can continue to be an anchor, an albatross on his neck, which is basically her sole reason for existing in these days. But this is where she was in Wyoming on the debate stage with some other much more highly qualified people who should actually be in Congress and who will soon. Let's listen to this debate.
Representative Cheney.
Thank you very much. It's been a tremendous honor, the highest honor of my professional life, to represent the people of Wyoming for the last 5.5 years. I am a conservative Republican. I'm going to work hard to earn the vote of every Wyomingite in this election.
Wow.
And I think it's important for people to know that I believe that the most conservative of conservative principles is fidelity to our Constitution. In Wyoming, we ride for the brand, and our brand is the United States Constitution. So I'm going to ask people for their vote. I'm going to work hard to earn that vote. But people need to know something about me.
Tell us, Liz.
I will never put party above my duty to the country. I will never put party above my duty to the Constitution. I swore an oath under God, and I will abide by that oath. I won't.
Now, I have said many times why this committee is illegal, and I don't think that the Constitution allows for illegal committees. And I also don't think that the Constitution allows for the congressional body to usurp power from the executive branch. And let me explain what I mean by this. Remember that we have three branches of government: the executive branch, which is the presidency, the legislative branch, which is Congress, and then we have the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court and the courts under it. In this case, Liz Cheney is usurping power from the executive branch. Liz Cheney is a member of Congress. That's where she belongs, in the House of Representatives. And if you know about the separation of powers, you know that the Department of Justice, the DOJ, the people who prosecute, investigate, and prosecute crimes, they all exist in the executive branch, right? That's what they do. FBI investigates crimes. We've covered several different criminal cases here involving the FBI, and you've seen how they progress. We've seen what a direct complaint looks like, where an FBI agent writes an affidavit and a search warrant or whatever, files it, we get it unsealed after the arrest is made, and boom, we go through the whole process. That means the DOJ and the U.S. prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney's Office is set up for this. That's what they do. Congress is not supposed to set up entities that prosecute people. Okay, that is not their power. They're supposed to be a legislative purpose, but every time they go on this, every single time they're on these interviews, guess what question they get asked? Is your committee going to make a criminal referral over to the DOJ, right? So they're almost acting as an extra executive, an agency that is not a part of the executive branch, that is part of a highly partisan, politicized wing of the Democratic Party, creating a fake committee that is illegally constituted. HR 503, which constituted this committee, said they have to have 13 members. They don't. They've got 9. They said they have to have 5 Republicans. They don't. They have 2. There is no representation on this committee. It is illegal. And the House of Representatives is supposed to be representative. So this committee, which is not representative, is illegally constituted. So this is Liz Cheney here talking around and around in circles, saying she's doing a good job here. It's a nice speech. Here in Wyoming, which I'm going to Wyoming, by the way. I'm going to be in Wyoming in 3 weeks. Maybe I'll go say hi to Liz. But the point is, right, she is extra constitutional here. She's outside of the constitutional framework. This is not lawful stuff. And I still have not seen a good justification for why this is a legally constituted committee. The only response that I have seen from people are links to articles. And there have been some people on Twitter that say, Rob, look at this article or look at that article. I've seen references to Judge Nichols and him saying that he's not going to find it invalid, right? Because again, the courts, it's hard for a lower level district court to invalidate a congressional committee. Why? The separation of powers, right? So I still have not seen, and until we get a ruling from the Supreme Court that says, no, you can just run a committee with however many members you want, doesn't matter to me. We don't care. Until we see that, I have not seen a single court of law that has said that this was a legally constituted committee. I have not seen it. Based on its formation, right? Based on 13 members being required and 9 people being on it. I have not seen a judge or an order or anything. And if you have it, for the love of all, please send it to me, because I would like to see it. I have not seen it. I've seen judges make verbal orders saying, well, we're going to deny that motion, but I have not seen a good basis for it. So let's wrap up with Liz.
Don't say something that I know is wrong simply to earn the votes of people, to earn political support. That's what the voters of Wyoming deserve. That's what the voters of Wyoming demand. That's the kind of respect that we owe the voters of this great state. We need to recognize that if we are not faithful to the Constitution, if we embrace lies, if we embrace the lies of Donald Trump, if we tell the people of Wyoming something that is not true.
Your whole committee is a lie. Your last witness that you just interviewed lied to the American people. Cassidy Hutchinson says, I wrote that note. No, you didn't. Eric Fleshman says he wrote it. She said that Tony Ornato told her something about Donald Trump assaulting a Secret Service officer. Turns out that's probably not true either, because other Secret Service agents have already been examined and none of this testimony has come up previously, meaning it's probably not true.
True, we will soon find ourselves without the structure and the basis and the framework of our constitutional republic. If we don't abide by the Constitution when it is politically inconvenient, then we will not have the Constitution as our shield when we need to defend our First Amendment rights and our Second Amendment rights. So I'm asking for your vote, and I'm asking you to understand that I will never violate my oath of office. And if you're looking for...
You're violating it right now. This entire committee is a violation of the Constitution. And you know that, but she still is just going to go through her little
somebody
speech.
who will, then you need to vote for somebody else on this stage, because
They will. They are going to vote for somebody else. Harriet Hageman is way up in the polls.
My oath first.
Thank you, Representative Cheney.
Okay, so that was the screeching, painful sound, I guess, of the let's see. I was trying to find Liz Cheney polls. 2 polls here from 2 weeks ago put Hageman well ahead of Cheney, but they say it's early, so I don't think there's any recent polling on this that I have seen. Yeah, not seeing anything currently. But anyway, so that's Liz Cheney. Now, the whole statement is offensive because obviously she's somebody who is not somebody who embodies the Constitution in any way, shape, or form. This entire committee is illegally constituted, as we've talked about ad nauseum. I got one final clip from Liz before we go on to Pencil Neck. And here is Liz now getting a little bit ornery. They're asking her about this woman, Cassidy Hutchinson. They're saying, Liz, turns out this woman probably is a liar. What do you have to say about that?
Grab at the steering wheel.
People have outright said that she's not telling the truth. Cassidy Hutchinson's not telling the truth about what happened in the presidential motorcade.
She's a liar, yeah.
The committee's not going to stand by and watch her character be assassinated by anonymous sources and by men who are claiming executive privilege.
What?
And so we look forward very much to additional testimony under oath on a whole range of issues.
Oh my gosh. All right, so hold on.
Do you have any?
Okay, well, this is awkward. This is pretty awkward because these aren't anonymous sources who told her that this is unfactual. I mean, let's listen one more time.
To be assassinated by, the committee's not going to stand by and watch her character be assassinated by anonymous sources and by men who are claiming executive privilege.
Okay, Psycho, let me explain this to you. Here, this person who is already rebutting her claim is not an anonymous source. We've already talked about this. Remember this guy? Eric Hirschman, the White House lawyer. He's the person who says that he wrote that note. This is from ABC News. Trump White House attorney disputes Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony about the handwritten note, June 28th. Former White House lawyer Eric Hirschman is claiming the handwritten note regarding a potential statement for then Trump was written by him during a meeting at the White House and not by White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. Well, he's not anonymous. He's not invoking executive immunity or executive privilege or any of that stuff. Eric Fleshman was somebody who testified a lot. And in fact, the media was thrilled with his testimony. I mean, they couldn't get more excited about this guy. Remember this guy? The creepy panda guy with the justice bat on. So he was the subject of a lot of testimony. Eric Hirschman is saying Cassidy Hutchinson is a liar. So Liz, what are you talking about? How can you say that these are anonymous sources when your own witnesses are saying your witnesses are liars? Why can't the media ask her about that? Where was the follow-up question on that? Yes, but Liz, Eric Hirschman, your own witness, said that she lied because she didn't write the note. He said that he wrote the note. He already testified under oath many times. So how do you explain that? Well, of course, nobody's going to ask that question because it's just a stupid scam. All right, so that was Liz Cheney. Let's take a look at what Pencil Neck Schiff, Watermelon Head has to say here. And then we're going to jump into Steve Bannon and go through more of trial prep for the upcoming Bannon trial. Here is Mr. What's this guy? Oh, Pencil Neck. Here.
Vice Chair of the committee, Liz Cheney, said not prosecuting former President Trump over the attack on the Capitol would be a much graver constitutional threat to the country than the political difficulties involved with bringing charges. She said this in an ABC interview.
Yeah, we just listened to that. And I disagree with that vehemently.
She also said there are possible criminal referrals, not just one, but multiple.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do. For 4 years, the Justice Department took the position that you can't indict a sitting president. If the department were now to take the position that you can't investigate or indict a former president, then a president becomes above the law. That's a very dangerous idea that the founders would have never subscribed to. Even more dangerous, I think, in the case of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is someone who has shown when he's not held accountable, he goes on to commit worse and worse abuses of power. So I agree with Judge Carter in California. I think there was evidence that the former president engaged in multiple violations of the law, and that should be investigated.
But there will.
What? Oh, it should be investigated? I mean, okay. That's what the DOJ is for. Why didn't you let them do it?
Will be a political calculus to this as well. This is an incredibly divided country right now. Millions of people voted for the former president and still believe wrongly that he won the election. Prosecuting him, isn't there a very high risk to that?
No comment on that one.
It's certainly not a step to be taken lightly at all. At the same time, immunizing a former president who has engaged in wrongdoing, I would agree with our vice chair, I think is more dangerous than anything else. Yeah,
it's more dangerous than you guys indicting. Do you realize what's going to happen if they indict him or when they indict him? A bunch of people, even myself included, who were kind of like, well, we'll wait and see what's going on here. And, we'll pick the best candidate when the time comes. And they indict Donald Trump. Holy moly. Now you just say, all right, you sons of bees. Okay, fine. Let's go. All right, let's go. We'll do it. Let's go. Let's do it. And it's going to fire up a bunch of people who would have sat on the sidelines, I think. A lot of people would say, oh, you know what? Look, I was not happy with what happened on January 6th, but we've got other people in the wings that run and other people. But now you indict them and you say every single Republican who ever supported Donald Trump is now an insurrectionist. I mean, literally, Liz Cheney said that you're an insurrectionist. She just said that. If you support Donald Trump because you don't support the Constitution. So then you just say, okay, you know what? Okay, we'll see. We're going to go ahead and maybe max out our donations to Trump this time.
And the decision not to move forward with an investigation or not to move forward with the prosecution because of someone's political status or political influence or because they have a following, to me, that is a far more dangerous thing to our Constitution than following the evidence wherever it leads, including when it leads to a former president.
Vice Chair. So the people could just not vote for Donald Trump, but what they're trying to do is use this entire thing as a cudgel to eliminate not only Donald Trump, but every Republican ever for all time. So that's what we had over the weekend, my friends. Now, they are scheduled. I think the next hearing is in 1 week from today. I wanted to say it's on the, is it on the 12th? I think it might be on the 12th. I don't remember when it was. Next, let's see, the next J6 committee hearing is on, I think it's on the 12th. And so we're probably going to see a lot more of this type of stuff all over the airwaves. Well, and I can't find it right now. But anyways, you get the gist of it. So that's the update from the J6 stuff. And we We'll continue to follow it and see if there's any new updates. But there were some pretty big updates on the Steve Bannon case, speaking of people who are being prosecuted as a result of this sham hoax. We can see over here, we've got several different types of criminal prosecutions that are moving forward. We've got the process crimes and we have the actual J6 crimes. The J6 crimes that we've been covering really center around these three groups: Ryan Kelly, Oath Keepers, and the Proud Boys. Ryan Kelly, largely because he's a GOP candidate. But the other two have been the seditious conspirators, of course. And so we're not talking about them today because there were no real updates. But we do have an update on Steve Bannon. Now, his trial is coming up right around the corner. I mean, really close. So on July 18th is when it is currently scheduled for. But remember that the defense, Steve Bannon and his defense team, they want what's called a continuance. They want to push this trial out further because, well, a whole slew of reasons, which we're going to get into. But there was a bunch of activity in the court docket today, and basically over the last 4 days. And I want to go through the biggest updates. And so I've summarized them into three main buckets, and we'll go through them one by one. First, let's talk about the motion to continue the trial. All right. So Bannon, of course, is scheduled for trial, but his defense team does not want this thing to happen right now. And so they filed this 16-page motion. Let's go through it pretty quickly. They're asking for a postponement is essentially what this means. We call it a continuance in court. Motion to continue the trial, sort of push it out however long. And they say, all right, Judge, let's go through this. They say, Your Honor, we're scheduled for trial, but we want to push it back until after October 15th. They say the indictment was filed in 2021, case was randomly assigned to this court, and we have trials now scheduled for the 18th. They say this was an aggressive schedule given the complex issues involved, and when trial was scheduled, neither the court nor the parties were aware of the June and upcoming July media blitz by the Select Committee. They say the Select Committee hired a television executive to produce maximum public impact, right? They're trying to shift the public opinion on this. And in addition, the Select Committee scheduled its initial hearings during prime time, again, to maximize public impact when reporting its findings. As described by a cultural critic, the Select Committee hearings, quote, have a lot in common with a TV miniseries, narrative, editing, and even surprise reveals. And their attention to substance and style, combining their prosecutorial case with a consciousness that piques viewers' curiosity while that people keep talking afterwards. And who wrote that? I don't know who wrote that. James Ponewiski, somebody from the New York Times. Okay, so he's saying here that this trial cannot take place right now because there is way too much activity going on, way too much media. And in fact, this is designed to gather the attention of the media. The J6 committee wants public attention. So they say this is a misdemeanor case. Bannon is not detained. He consents to the tolling of the Speedy Trial Act. So he'll agree to the continuance. And we've got additional reasons why this is problematic. They said after the trial date was set in this case, the Select Committee scheduled numerous and public hearings in June. The purpose of the hearings is to convince America that Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. They were explicit, they say. There were explicit references to Mr. Bannon at the hearings, and all of the information was presented as, quote, evidence and findings, okay? It's not a trial. These are congressional idiots. And they're gathering evidence and they're presenting it as findings. He says public impact is not limited to the hearings themselves, but to media coverage that magnified the hearings. In D.C., where the trial takes place and where the acts alleged in the indictment take place, every major media outlet treated the hearings as a top news story. We set forth facts about this. Every person accused of a crime is guaranteed a fair trial, they say, and that's why this warrants a continuance. The media saturation in June and July, right before the trial is scheduled, is not appropriate. The jury needs to be fairly situated. So they say the only way we can get a fair trial is through a continuance. Supreme Court raised concerns about media saturation a long time ago in a case called Redu versus Louisiana back in 1963. Also a different case in 1966 called Shepard versus Maxwell. And ever since that time, things have even gotten worse, right? This has gotten really, really aggressive. The media out there in the public is very aggressive with, these stories. The defense for Bannon writes, there has been pervasive committee hearing in Washington coverage. June 9th, 20 million people watched. Over 4.6 million people tuned into the hearings across YouTube, CNBC, C-SPAN. I mean, to be honest with you, like, these numbers are pretty low for America. But if you're a defendant, right, this is like shocking. Could you imagine if you're on a criminal trial? Let's say you're charged with DUI and you've got an entire committee that's screaming about your DUI for 17 months. Can you believe Robert got a DUI? Can you believe this? Oh, blah, 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 all day for 17 months in Arizona to all my prospective jurors. And then they said, okay, you go out there, Rob, and you go have your DUI trial. Good luck. Not fair at all. At all. And so, right, Steve Bannon, even though he's a high profile guy, this is a criminal case and he deserves the same presumption of innocence and the same protections in a criminal trial as any other defendant does. So just because this involved the J6 hearings doesn't mean that he gets like, 2/3 protections or 1/3 of his constitutional rights. It's nonsense. So the defense says over 4.6 million viewers tuned in. Second highest trending search term. Massive numbers of articles came out about this. Local Washington news coverage. Local radio turned out 545 results. A Google search of the website shows all these results, right? And basically this defense lawyer is just saying, look at the massive impact on this thing. It's really, really prejudicing our client. And so they say that a continuance is required. It would be impossible to guarantee Bannon a fair trial in the middle of these sham hearings, and other case law has been in existence that supports our claim. Here they write, Mr. Bannon has been highlighted specifically in the hearings. The select committee hearings have not only addressed in general terms what is coming, but they're also specifically referencing Bannon. For instance, back on June 9th, they issued this, quote, finding, in quotes, to millions of viewers. Liz Cheney got up on the teleprompter and she read this. Cheney says, as you will see in our hearings, the White House was receiving specific reports in the days leading up to the January 6th, including during Trump's Ellipse rally, indicating the elements in the crowd were preparing for violence at the Capitol. And on the evening of January 5th, the president's close advisor, Steve Bannon, said this on his podcast. And then they played the clip from Steve. Steve said, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Just understand this. All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Which is not any different than anything the Democrats have ever said, right? We had Chuck Schumer screaming at Gorsuch saying, the winds are coming for you, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Remember? Another example took place on June 21st, where they played this quote finding. On June 30th, December 30th, Trump ally Steve Bannon announced a protest, and they played a clip from Steve Bannon. And Cheney said Roger Stone took the fifth. Others like Steve Bannon and Navarro refused to comply with lawful subpoenas, right? So she's prosecuting him already in the public eye. That's why it should be continued. You can see that this is some more legal argument that goes on. Bannon consents to the exclusion of the speedy trial rule. So Bannon is saying, I don't want my right to a speedy trial. I'm going to waive that for this proceeding or for this case. So just give us some more time. Now, it seems 100% reasonable to me. And if I were, a prosecutor, of course, in any other case, I think they would grant that. But here, they know that if they do not make this prosecution go forward, if this trial does not happen, this committee might not be around anymore. It might evaporate, right? And then maybe the prosecution, they say, well, there is no subpoena. I mean, we had a subpoena for Steve, but we don't have a subpoena for Steve anymore. So the criminal prosecution is kind of moot. Like, here's an example of this, right? One example in Arizona, like, let me give you a criminal law example. In Arizona, we just decriminalized marijuana, right? Now, it used to be a felony here. So if there were a bunch of felony marijuana cases that were pending, the voters came, they passed the marijuana law, said decriminalized, okay. And now all of those felony prosecutions are basically moot, right? The prosecutor could still kind of move forward with those, and they end up going, all right, well, it's not illegal anymore, so I guess we'll just dismiss those cases, right? And that's kind of what you could expect to happen here. Republicans take over. J6 committee is now evaporated, or it's filled with Republicans, and they say, well, hey, Steve, guess what? We don't need that subpoena anymore, do you? Do we? And he says, that's great. And the DOJ says, well, what are we supposed to do with this prosecution? maybe they continue forward with it. But the Republicans are in charge now. So they still maintain control of the DOJ until Biden gets out of there. So they can still make those prosecutions. But if the committee is not cooperating with the DOJ and not communicating evidence and not supporting them with witnesses and things, it's going to make it for a hard prosecution. It's kind of an adversarial situation now. So the prosecutors are now objecting to this, right? They're going to say, no, we don't want a continuance. They respond in 11 pages, and we'll fly through it quickly because we've got a lot of other stuff to get to. But they say, Your Honor, we oppose the motion to continue. They say the committee's recent hearings and news have almost nothing to do with the defendant or the charges against him and have in no way presumptively created a prejudicial pretrial publicity regarding this case. So the prosecutor with a straight face, and this is what they're supposed to do. I mean, they have to do this, right? Is going to say, no, Bannon's going to get a fair trial in D.C. Legal background. Let's see what some of the analysis is. Talking about all this case law. Neither the committee's hearings nor the news coverage of them have focused on the defendant or generated prejudicial pretrial publicity. To date, the committee has held 7 hearings, 14 hours. The defendant was not mentioned at all during 5 of them and featured only in passing in the June 9th and June 21st hearings. A total combination of less than 30 seconds. Right? But a closer look, even at those 2 brief mentions of the defendant by the committee, demonstrate that they do not call prejudicial attention towards the defendant with respect to his criminal trial. So they're minimizing his involvement. Okay, Liz Cheney was maximizing it, saying Donald Trump's right-hand man, Steve Bannon, the big architect of the insurrection, the guy who said all hell's going to be breaking loose. He was the one responsible for this. And she put him front and center at the hearings. But then the prosecutor is going to flip that around and say, we have to minimize this. So how are we going to do it? Well, we're just going to sort of lather it in all of the other stuff that the hearing talked about, and we're going to minimize it. We're going to say it's not that consequential because it was only less than 30 seconds. And they are linking all the YouTube videos and so on. Now you see what the arguments are. Very minimal. The case the defendant cites here are not appropriate cases. In conclusion, they tell us the defendant has provided no support for this contention. Amanda Vaughn saying that his motion to continue should be denied. So the judge is ultimately going to issue a ruling on that, and we'll take a look and see what that says when the time comes. But it is, if it's denied, trial is going on in 2 weeks on the 18th. If it is continued, it may go out past October, and then we'll see if the hearings are even done by then. I mean, I'm not sure that they will be, to be honest. The other big sort of set of filings that came in today were motions in limine. And remember, motions in limine are very important. The trial is right around the corner. And we don't want, unlike what they show you in Hollywood and on the Netflix series and all these movies and things, we really don't want a lot of surprises to happen at trial. We're not in a situation where the prosecutor, asks the defendant a question on the stand and he says, no, I've never seen that before. And he says, oh yeah? Well, guess who our next witness is? Meet Mrs. Johnson. And Mrs. Johnson walks through the door with her little purse and she's like, oh, look who it is. And the defendant's like, oh no, I'm screwed. That doesn't happen that way. It never does. Everything has to be disclosed, and we try to work this stuff out so that things don't get weird in the middle of trial. So in this case, we had several different motions being filed. First came out from the prosecutor's office, and they say they filed this a couple weeks ago, and Bannon just responded. So take a look at this filing date. Back on June 17th, 17 pages. And we have already covered this previously, so we're not going to go through it at length. But I do want to refresh your recollection here briefly. Here, the United States Omnibus motion in limine. The court should preclude the defendant from making arguments about government misconduct. Remember that? Can't say that the government is bad. They also said Bannon should not be allowed to make improper arguments to politicize this case. Okay, Bannon can't make those political arguments is what they want the judge to rule. They want the judge to say that they can't make claims about government misconduct. They can't go to the jurors and say the select committee is a bunch of garbage and that this is a political prosecution. They can't say that. And so on and so forth. Okay, so this is kind of what this is about. Now, Bannon responded here about 4 days ago on the 1st. So that would have been on Friday? Yeah, that was on Friday. They responded. So here, you can see this is 15 pages. And again, we'll go through this relatively quickly. But this is their omnibus motion in limine. They're responding to the government's motion. The government is trying to stop them from making a bunch of arguments. Now they're responding and saying, no, we should be allowed to make those arguments. Here, they tell us, the government feels that it must remind the court of the rules of evidence so that they can maintain proper order. However, writes Bannon's defense, what purports to be a primer on evidence, however, reflects little understanding of the adversarial nature of a criminal trial or the constitutional guarantees that are essential to a fair trial. The blanket rulings sought by the government are inconsistent with the rights guaranteed to every defendant. The government motion, and it continues to deny Mr. Bannon the right to defend himself, and so therefore this motion should be denied. They say fears of a circus atmosphere are unfounded. The government knows that Bannon has been present for numerous hearings, and although some matters were closely contested, decorum prevailed. Bannon is not a circus clown show. Government prosecutors, take it easy. The Constitution requires that Bannon be permitted to confront the witnesses against him, talking about the confrontation clause in the U.S. Constitution, important clause there. And we get a lot of law on what that looks like. See here, testing investigatory tactics is always fair game. The government wants Bannon and wants the jury to decide whether the prosecutors committed misconduct. The jury will be asked to make no decision. However, the jury will be allowed to hear evidence about the criminal trial and how it was conducted. Here, the defense is saying the jury is the fact finder. They get to decide what is reliable and what is not reliable. They're saying this misdemeanor is relevant. It's not prejudicial. And that the U.S. has actually published its policies about these prosecutions. And so they want to reference the policies. So all of this is summed up here. They filed this here, Evan Corcoran, David Scone, Robert Costello. And this is their response. So in other words, the government is going to say, you can't, we want you to not be able to talk about these things. And they're responding to every one of those saying, we would love to talk about those things. And the judge is going to go through each one of those and say, okay, on this one, we're going this way. Don't talk about it, or don't talk about these things with that. We did a lot of this with Michael Sussman, if you remember. So that same process is well underway now. And then lastly, before we jump into your questions and your comments over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and all these great super chats that came in. From Ordoc, Rebel the Waist Down, Laura, Jin Ulias is here. We have GN with several super chats, Made Ghost, and we're going to get to you here in a minute. Thank you for those, everybody. But lastly, we have the jury instructions. Okay, so presuming the trial does go forward on the 18th, we are then going to have to pick juries. And this is 64 pages of documents, but let's just run through it very, very quickly. These are the joint proposed jury instructions. And this case is actually not that complicated, relative to the other cases that we've covered. Okay, like literally, it's not that complicated of a case. And let's just go through the facts here. What Bannon is being charged with is not sedition, conspiracy, any of that. It has nothing really to do with what happened on January 6th at all. It's a process crime. Bannon was ordered to show up and testify. He was ordered through subpoena from this fake committee to show up and provide documents. He did neither of those things. And he got charged with crimes for that. So we're talking about 2 criminal charges for 2 types of conduct. 1, not showing up and talking. 2, not delivering documents. Okay, not crimes of the century. In Michael Sussman, same kind of a thing, right? It was very similar, like one charge, but it was a lot more of a complicated case because of all of the history leading up to it and all of the sort of the history after the fact and the highly politicized nature of the whole thing. And we couldn't talk about a lot of it. Remember, that judge precluded a lot of evidence in that case. But here, right, it's kind of the same thing, except there's not really any other witnesses. In Sussman, we had a ton of witnesses. In the GM-JE case, there were a ton of witnesses, like 4 different victims, remember? Here, it's not that much. There's not much to talk about. It's like, did you show up or not? And which really should make it a pretty easy case for the prosecutors to win, honestly, right? This should be an open and closed case. It's like, did you show up? No. Was it lawful? The court says it was. Okay, you didn't show up. That's it. Conviction. So the jury instructions are going to be pretty quick. The defendant provided 2 of their proposed instructions. And so they've sort of, gone through this back and forth with the government. And so, as I said, we're not going to go through this all here. We've spent a lot of time on this channel talking all about jury instructions. But here, right, the disputed Red Book instruction. The United States objection to the defendant's proposed instruction about missing witnesses or other evidence. The government objects to Bannon his use of the Red Book instruction for a missing witness because the defendant is not entitled to this instruction in this case. They say the defendant hasn't responded to the government's request for this stuff and so on and so forth. So there are going to be some disputes here. Contempt of Congress. Okay, what are the elements of the offense? And the defense here has added a bunch of additional proposed instructions. So they're probably going to set a follow-up hearing on this, right before trial starts or before the jury, before this all goes to the jury. So there is some disagreement about this, and they're going to have to hash through it. It's 64 pages. So as I said, I don't want to spend much time on it. We'll do that at the conclusion of the trial, but that is something else that was filed and issued today. And so we covered a lot of ground. Trial readiness. I saw no additional updates in the Navarro case today. There were some updates in some other cases not related to January 6th, like the Marilyn Mosby case out of Baltimore. There was an update and some others. But the Bannon case is hot. It's coming in hot, and we're going to have to see whether or not there is a continuance, whether the judge pushes that out or not. And so that, my friends, is it for the headlines and the news of the day. Let's see what you have to say about this, though. All of our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And, of course, we have our Rumble crew. Shout out to Catwoman MN and Vianticus Prime chatting away over there. Member of the Public is also on Rumble, which is a very descriptive name. Member of the Public. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You are, aren't you? All over there chatting away at Rumble. On our Rumble page, Vianticus Zach Nichols is here on Locals, along with Clumber. John Q Simple, along with Tweak, Jumpin' Jeff, TOS Forever, Kincaid, former LEO, chatting away over on Locals. And so let me pull up some of these comments from the Locals crew before we jump into this. And here are a couple of them. Former LEO says, Rob, have they explored a change of venue and used the Sussman trial as a miscarriage of justice? They're not going to change the venue on something like this. I don't even think that maybe they've attempted it, but the continuance is sort of an attempt to gain a little bit of a forum advantage, but it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, former LEO. It's Jake from Oxford. He says, Rob, as you talk smack about us over what is lawful and moral, let me just shut you down with an amazing word from the most powerful man on earth and your leader of the free world. You're welcome.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the
He was in the foothills of the Himalayas, walking around with Xi Jinping. If you remember that quote. Yeah, he said, I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, and we were walking around. I think probably they were hanging out with Mao Zedong or something. I don't know. Very strange. Thank you, Jake. But he's right. He is the most powerful in the world, a man in the world, and he is our president. I'm not that sure if he's the most powerful man in the world. I don't think so. Okay, just because you're sitting in the president's chair, if you don't know where you are, right, then the person who knows where you are is the person who's more powerful than you. Even if your official title is the president. If you don't know you're the president or know what that means, the person who does, he's got that power, not you. Former LEO has a meme of the day, says that should have been me lunging for the steering wheel from Hillary. She's so mad and upset about it. Let's see what we've got coming in over on YouTube. Doc gave us a super chat at the start of the show. Says, dude, I dug your walk around the neighborhood. I also loved your meaning of freedom. I was shaking my head up and down, agreeing with you many times. Great work. Scott Pesteri in Southern Oregon. Well, thank you for that, Scott. That's a very nice comment. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the morning walk and talks. And the one I posted on YouTube was sort of I made it open for everybody, but we do that every single day. Every morning I've been doing the walk and talks, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes. It's usually in the mornings as I'm sort of walking, getting some sunshine, clearing my hair, my air out, clearing my head, getting some air. Goodness. And it's something that I think has been a lot of fun. It's a little bit of a different pace, a little bit more casual feel. And so I'm glad that you're enjoying that, Doc. And if you want to get more of those every day, Scott or anybody, join up, become a member on YouTube or a member on Locals, and then you sort of get 2 shows on the day. You get a little bit more, we're carrying the conversation over in between the show and the next show because there's a lot that happens. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it, Scott. And thanks for the support, my friend. Rebel from the waist down says, heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another. You've been messing around, which is true. I think that's very true. Yeah. The game of telephone is being played in this fake congressional select committee. Tony told me, and somebody told Tony, and then Tony told me, and then I told Mark, and then Mark wrote the letter, and then I submitted it to America. Your committee's a sham. How dare you offend the American Constitution? Okay. Thank you, Rebel. Laura Genolius is here with a very nice, generous super chat. Says, I don't always catch you on the live stream, but I still enjoy watching you after I get home from work most of the time. I enjoy all you do and the fun you put into it, along with all the hard work. Keep up the great work, and thank you. Well, thank you, Laura. Another very nice message. My goodness. Such a nice thing to say, and I appreciate the support. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy these conversations with you, and I was thinking about this. I was actually, it was my mom's birthday yesterday. So we went over and celebrated July 4th, the birthday of America, and the birthday of Mama Govea. We had a lot of fun, and, it's always good to connect with friends and some people I haven't seen in a while. And they were asking, how are things going? I'm like, I just feel so blessed. Honestly, I really do. It's like, I get to have so much fun with you here on these shows. We get to really talk through a lot of, I think, very important issues. And I just feel very blessed. And so I'm glad that you're enjoying it, Laura. And I'm glad that we're able to connect in the way that we are. I'm grateful that you're here. GN says, keep the media honest. Can you walk us through a FOIA request or how we can demand an audit to erode collusion? Well, a FOIA request, yeah. I mean, a FOIA request is not all that complicated. I actually think there are websites that will they have like a process for you. Like they'll walk you through it almost like TurboTax, I think. I think I saw one. FOIA walkthrough. And I think, here it is, right? A step-by-step guide to completing a FOIA request with the Department of Homeland Security. There's all these websites that really do this. And so let me show you this one. Here, okay, here is a family-based FOIA request with the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, here's one. This came over from some .org. Immigration Legal Source Center, right? There's all sorts of step-by-step guides. So I would just pick one that maybe makes most sense for you. And I know like Judicial Watch and some others. It sort of depends on the agency, but there's all sorts of guides and templates. It's like TurboTax. Put here, put this here, put this here. What do you want? Be very specific about it. Put date, make sure you have beginning and end dates. The problem with most FOIAs, why they don't get granted, is because they're overbroad. It's like, I want all the Michael Sussman emails involving the FBI. And you just go, okay, like we need names, we need dates, we need locations, we need more specificity so that they can look it up, right? They're not going to deliver you like a wheelbarrow full of documents. They're going to, what do you need? Like specifically, give us some granularity on that. So that's my only advice, but there are a lot more details on the internet. GN says the military is the only way. I'm not sure what you're referencing there, GN. The military maybe solving some of our problems. I don't like the idea of the military getting involved to I don't know, put down or solve much of anything. I think that I'd rather just society figure it out. I think we can. I don't think we need the military, but I'm not sure what you're referencing there. So I may have been talking about something. Who knows? But thank you, GN, for that one. And GN also said, I wonder how much corrupt has been rubber stamped during all of this. How much corrupt nonsense has been rubber stamped during all of this? A lot. Billions and billions of dollars. And it's disgusting what's happened. I mean, look at the headlines. Every day, tens of millions and then billions are going over to different parts of the world. I saw a headline that 5 million barrels of oil are now going over to Europe. So we released all this oil from our strategic reserves, and now 5 million barrels are going over to Europe and different parts of the world. Well, meanwhile, since the recession is now starting, we're going to see, I think, oil prices maybe come back down because nobody's doing anything. So interesting times indeed. Made Ghost says, if they are able to impeach and indict a former president, then can't they impeach 44 too? Yeah, I mean, I think that they could. Yes, once Pandora's box is opened, once they start doing all of this, I think the Republicans have fair game to do all of it as well. I mean, even if it is unconstitutional, like they did it, so why wouldn't the Republicans try it? right? In a sports game, if that's an illegal move, but the ref doesn't call him on that, and there's no penalty for kicking you in the nads every time you're on the soccer field, well, then I guess the other team should just start kicking them also, unfortunately. And it's not gentlemanly, but that's the new America that we live in. Thank you, Made Ghost. Jenny B, who became a member. And hey, by the way, I learned now that you can actually, now I haven't tried this yet. I learned that you can actually, let's see if I can do this. It said that you can actually buy memberships. So I got an email today from YouTube that said, hey, congratulations. You can gift memberships now to people. So I might try to start that here soon. Meaning I might buy some memberships and then gift out memberships. I'll try to figure that out for tomorrow. But that feature just got turned on here, so I can actually gift you memberships. Curtis Bartle's a member, and Jenny B's a member. Jenny B became a member on YouTube. Rest in peace, Dr. Zelenko. Thank you for saving millions. You know, I heard that, Dr. Zelenko, and I think I liked, well, rest in peace, Dr. Zelenko. Yeah, he died fairly young, way too young, and a big loss. I know he was a very, very big, profound voice in the COVID debate, and so he will absolutely be missed. So thank you for reminding me to mention that, Jenny B. Molly Dolly says, I would pay to watch you interview the J6 committee. Look, I'll tell you what, Molly, I would pay to interview the January 6th committee. I would pay for it. I'd say, what do you want? Let's see if we can crowdsource it. Liz, I'll donate all of this to your re-election campaign. Give me a 10-minute interview. But you got to answer my questions, okay? 10 minutes. What does it cost? I would love to have a conversation with them. But they don't want to have conversations. It's just a big scam, the whole thing, right? It's a High School Musical presentation. It's a joke. All right, we had another one here over on Locals. Jeremy says, can you explore how this committee could be constitutionally challenged? Yeah, so Jeremy, I mean, my interpretation of this, okay, is that the committee is unlawful. Why? Because they are illegally constituted under their own rules, all right? The House passes rules internally that dictates how they govern themselves, right? The House governs itself. Here, they created this committee, and here, H.R. 503 says the appointment, it says the speaker shall, right? The shall mean it's not discretionary. There's no option. It's a shall. It's not a may. May is different. Shall appoint 13 members to the committee, 5 of whom shall be appointed after consultation with the minority leader. Okay, in my reading of that, it's the plain language of the text. 13-member committee should be more or less, basically an 8-to-5 reference, 8-to-5 difference. Okay, meaning you've got 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans. That gives you an 8-to-5 ratio of representation. We don't have that. We have, in fact, we have a 9-to-2 ratio of representation. This is what the actual committee looks like. We've got 7 Democrats here. These are all the Democrats. And then we have the Republicans, who are only 2 of them. And so they were not selected in consultation with the minority leader. They volunteered on their own because they're basically Democrats and they're not going to be in Congress anymore. So in my opinion, it's not even a constitutional thing, really. It is a constitutional thing because the House committee, the House of Representatives, is governed by the Constitution, and they can't just act like lunatics and maniacs outside of the Constitution. But they're doing that. And so, Jeremy, that's where I would start. I would say it's illegally constituted right there. I mean, it's not even lawful. Now, when that argument has been made by people who are suing the committee in courts, the courts are being deferential to Congress because of the separation of powers. The courts are saying, well, at this district court level, we can't really invalidate a legislative committee, right? Like the DC Circuit Court, like this judge, okay, Judge Nichols in this case, where is he? The DC Circuit Court. Here's Judge Carl Nichols out of the DC level. Do you think that he's just going to invalidate a congressional committee? No. So what is he going to do? He's going to say, I can't really make an opinion on what the committee's doing. Here's what I do know, though. They referred this over to the DOJ, and the DOJ is prosecuting this as any other crime. So the judge also doesn't have the authority to just unilaterally dismiss cases, right? Unless there's a basis for it. So even if the judge thought that the committee itself was invalid, the DOJ is not invalid, and the DOJ is prosecuting the case from the committee. So the judge doesn't really have much authority to dismiss this case because it's a regular case. Unless we can get a higher level court, which in this case would really be the Supreme Court, to say that what Congress has done here by enacting this committee was illegal. So the judges are just going to rubber stamp it. And they know that. That's why this has all been gamed out already. Okay, Mark Elias and all of these people, they've already gamed this out. They know what the limiting factor is on this committee. They know it's going to be the Supreme Court. That's why they're doing it. There's nothing, nobody's going to do anything, nobody can do anything about it until the levers of power change, because it's protected by the political protections in place. They have found a nice way to sort of thread this needle on this thing, and they're wrecking America over it. And they're even being asked about it. They just don't care. But it's a good question, Jeremy. And that's how I would attack it. Good question. C. Reed says, Rob, don't know if you got the chance to watch my fireworks video from last night. With all the fireworks banned in Orange County, my take is that if we have that many freedom lovers here in the deep blue state, whom voted for these global warming fools? Would love to have your take on this issue. So I actually don't know what the firework problems are. We didn't have fireworks here in Arizona either. There were supply chain problems and the whole thing was a mess. Here, I just took a look at this video. So this was a drone fireworks. This is beautiful. There were no, where was this, C. Reed? Yeah, that looks beautiful. There were no fireworks in my part of town because the entire city of Phoenix said they had supply chain problems and the whole system is breaking down. But that looks pretty good. Those fireworks look pretty great. So nice footage on that, man. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I poked outside, but I didn't see a whole lot down here in my area. But thank you for sharing that, C. Reed. TOS Forever says, good evening, Rob. Watching the Watchers and Tech Team and Rob. What a wonderful time to be an American. Shout out to TOS Forever for that one. I agree with you. It is a good time to be here and to be an American. Salson says, I'm also on YouTube. And Hunter's Crack Dealer is here. He says, I'm on all the platforms that he can post to. And C. Reed is on all of them as well. And so I got both. You guys have as many tabs open as I do. I've got multiple tabs open. You can call me the tab man. All right. Cause I'm tabbing it up over here. I'm tabbing away. I got multiple chats over here. I've got the Rumble on, Vientikiss, Catwoman, Blue Bunny 420, member of the public, chatting away over on Rumble. Next tab. Guess what's over here? Kincaid, former LEO, Vientikiss, C. Reed's in the house, TOS Forever, along with former LEO and John Q. Simple. And back over here on this tab, shout out to the YouTube people. We've got Holy F My S Stinks, Elaine's in the house, Vijaya, Talbert's mom, Max Smith, Playin' Hooky, Edward Madriz, and others. And so thank you everybody for following me around the tabs. We had a couple other super chats come in before we wrap it up for the day. Pam Roning sent in, it says, great show. Thank you. Well, thank you, Pam. That's very nice, Pam. Great show. Thank you. It went a little off the rails there with all my tab commentary, but I appreciate you, Pam. Thanks for joining the show and for your support. Hell Radio Lives says, is there a legal means you can think of that will allow the revisiting of the case of the death of Ashley Babbitt? So, yeah, I mean, you know, it depends on what the outcome is, right? So if you think that the case should be investigated and like prosecuted, there may be some issues with that because of sort of the due process that they've already gone through with the Capitol Hill police and whatever the investigation led to. I don't know what happened there. We don't know what happened with this because they didn't tell us almost anything other than that little weird interview that they gave us with that guy who apparently did it. So now, like I'm not sure that they could prosecute him because he's already been sort of investigated. And I don't know if they convened a grand jury or anything. Like, I doubt it, but it might be hard to prosecute him. Now, that being said, an inquiry can certainly be, developed. And like, I'd like to know who did the investigation and who was responsible for that. And what was the conclusion? I'd like to see the notes of that inquiry and were there interviews and were there recorded depositions? I mean, what was part of that inquiry? And I'd love to see that. And if there was nefariousness that took place there, right, then those people might be prosecuted. And there could be some additional consequences that sort of are tangential to the underlying incident, right? Go investigate the people who actually investigated the shooting. Good question. That was from Hell Radio Lives. GN says, well, they are a white man. So they are one half of a person. That's from GN. And I think that was from, one of the, what was it? I was joking about 1/3 or 1/2 or and they're white guys. So they get less of a full opinion, I guess. Richard Soma says on election night, coup d'etat. Yeah, well, you know, Richard, you must be talking about the forthcoming election, because we know on YouTube we can't talk about the 2020 election. My YouTube censor is over there. He's got his ball and chain today, and so he's swinging it around like a lunatic. But I understand your point. That came from Richard Sama. We had another one from Jenny B. Says, Rob, I'm a 3-month member, not new. And here's a little to order the Bannon transcripts. Looking forward to your brilliant analysis. You make the law exciting. Thank you. That's from Jenny B. Yeah, Jenny B, it just gave me a notice that said you must have like re-upped or added some more months or something to that. So Jenny B's already been a member and is a continuing member, re-up there for some, looks like I think I saw it say another 5 months, which is just awesome. I'm glad you're here. That means a lot more walk and talk morning videos, and we're having a lot of fun with those. So thank you, Jenny B. And yes, Bannon's coming up. Hopefully there is, look, like Bannon wants a continuance. And so I don't want to wish against the continuance because that might be better for his defense. But I'm also pretty interested in covering this case. Kind of want to see the trial go forward, you know, so we're kind of stuck a little bit. But it is coming up, and the judge seems like he does not want to grant a continuance. It seems like he wants to keep this thing on the tracks. So we'll have to wait and see. But of course, we will definitely cover it. Thank you for that, Jenny B. And K Bean says, I nominate Limine and Talbert's mom for gratis memberships. Also, the mastermind class was outstanding. Thank you, K Bean. So good news, Talbert's mom, that's already been activated. Talbert's mom already did that. And at Lean, I didn't know that that was the username, but consider that one done also. And I'll tell you this, my friends, I know a lot of people out there, you know, I know times are tough, and I know, you know, when I started this membership thing, I thought it would be kind of fun in a way to like, but I've gotten some emails that have really like broken my heart. Like people like, you know, I feel sort of cut off from the community, and I'm retired and I'm on fixed income, and I really can't, but I, you know, and it just breaks my heart. So if you're somebody who's in that situation, if you need, like, if you can't afford a locals membership, I can scholarship you in. Okay. And a lot of people, I got to thank you too. Okay. A lot of people have reached out and said, you know what, I'd like to donate a little bit more for a scholarship for other people. And so it's not, you know, I don't want you to feel excluded. Please send me an email, robert@rrlawaz.com. If you are in those, if you're in a position like that, let me know. And I've also had people send me messages. Okay. Hey, I don't need it, but this person does. I know this person, they're in a position, they need it. Easy. No problem. Okay. Happy to do it. And it may not be because you need it, right? Anyways, thank you for the message, K Bean. Done and done. All right. And there's a couple others of you as well where that has been done. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. I really do believe in what we're trying to build here. We're trying to connect. We're trying to be useful to each other. We're trying to make sense of all this nonsense. We're trying to learn a little bit more about how to navigate the world. And we're trying to do it together because we are talking about parallel systems. We're talking about the world going mad. And I think community is very important to staying sane, staying productive, staying focused, staying on track. So we're going to do that together. And so thank you, K Bean. We had an amazing mastermind class. I thought, look, I love talking about that stuff. Sometimes it gets a little bit woo-woo and a little bit weird, but I'm glad you liked it, K Bean, because I think it is useful. It's a little bit of a different change. So, and thanks for the shout outs, K Bean, and for mentioning those two people who are going to join our community. So, all right, my friends, we're going to do a quick refresh on this over on Locals, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Let's see what else we've got here. A couple more came in. Here, Sousen Academy says, where was Cassidy during the last impeachment? If she is such a strong witness. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I know what happened, actually. She was looking for legal counsel with the First Amendment group. I mean, she wanted legal support from the Trump people, and then she flipped. She sent text messages. Actually, the Daily Wire, I think I forgot to mention that. The Daily Wire has a text of her sending something to some legal group saying, I need help with this BS J6 committee. Something happened. She flipped. Now she's team J6. Former LEO says, why don't the other Republicans during the debate just harpoon Liz over her conduct on the illegal commission? What Republicans? Kinzinger and Cheney are the only other people in the room. And they love what's happening here. And the other Republicans, I don't know what they're doing, but there really is no counter programming to any of this, right? I mean, I don't know who's doing any counter programming. There's a Twitter account called Trump War Room. Other than that, it's like us and, I don't know, Breitbart maybe, who are trying to rub their noses in it. But a lot of the Republicans, I think, are perfectly happy with Trump's nose being rubbed in all of this. And so those, my friends, are the questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Last one from former LEO says, could they go back and try Eric Holder on the same charges for refusing to honor his subpoena? Good question. I don't know the timeline on that, but there might be statute of limitations on this. Like I think a lot of the Durham statute of limitations have expired. So what's his name? The guy, the FBI guy, the creepo FBI guy. What's his name? Peter Strzok, right? I think like his statute of limitations expired. So he may not face criminal charges, and the clock basically starts ticking. If you don't bring criminal charges in your former LEO, you know what a statute of limitations is. I think that they're going to run into problems with that. And all right, my friends, I think that is it for us for the day. Just did a quick refresh. Let's see who else is here. E. Dantes just showed up on Locals. He says, Rob, it's been a minute. I've not been able to participate, but I'm still around listening. Keep it up. Good to see you, E. Dantes. I'm glad you're here. JC, the Music Man, TOS Forever as well. On Rumble, let's see. Member of the Public, Blue Bunny 420, Catwoman MN, all in the house chatting away. And on Locals, our members, of course, Cool Guy 18,000, Jenny B, Curtis Bartle, along with Robert Justice, Rod Southern, Vijaya's in the house, Dr. Ew, along with G, Betrayed by Corrupt Scumbags, is also here. Shout out to the Betrayed by Corrupt Scumbags. Love that. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for the show. Let's wrap it up here. If you do want to be a member, check us out over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Sign up on YouTube, click the join button right next to the subscribe button. I'd love it if you thought about our law firm. If you know anybody in Arizona who needs help with criminal charges, this is what we do every day. Okay. When I'm not here with you, most of my other time is thinking about our law firm and how we can help our clients. And so if you think about us and refer us business, that's very, very useful. We do a good job and we're very passionate about our work. So free case evaluations, 480-787-0394. And shout outs to all of our Spotlight supporters, including John Q Simple at qsimple.com. Check him out. He is a Spotlight supporter, along with Chris Romero, David B3, and Dr. EMB in the house as well. These are all of our Spotlight supporters. And if you want to support the show at a little bit higher tier, you can do that either on YouTube or on Locals, and you get a little bit of screen real estate. So we can support the work that you're doing, or just throw your name on there and just say, hey, thank you for all of your support. Or if you're, if you have a website like qsimple.com, right, maybe you can get some business. Maybe you can work with some people who are kind of, aligned with you on values. Maybe. Just an idea. So that's the thought. If you want to be a part of that, please let me know. Thank you to all of our mods in the house, Vianticus Prime, K-Bean, along with Zulu and Just Cause, which I did not see Just here today, but I did see Vianticus. Vianticus put in the chat that he was going to be out of town for a couple weeks, which means I guess the show's canceled for 2 weeks because Vianticus isn't going to be here. So thanks, V. So we'll have to hold the fort down, I guess. But But we love our mods. We love you, my friends, and everybody who supports the show. And so that is it for us for the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the program, for being here with us as we dissect all the news of the day. We are going to be back here tomorrow to do it all again, and I hope you join us. I would love it if you subscribed, if you have not already, before you got out of here. If you left us a like, that would also be very neat. And then, my friends, unplug for the evening. Get some good sleep. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great night, my friends. Bye-bye.